Welcome to our practice. Today we're just going to focus on just a little bit of heat building in this quick time that we have together. The only things that you'll need, I have 2 blocks. I am on a very padded surface right now, so my knees will be fine, but if you usually need a blanket for your knees, please get that. We're going to start right away in child's pose. So just bring your knees as wide as the mat. Toes can be together as you walk the arms forward, lengthening through the upper body and the arm bones. You'll probably hear me breathing quite heavily, just really using this time as a meditative tool on the breath. Maybe you notice with each exhale you can sink a little deeper in the hips, towards the heels, as you reach the arms a little further down the mat in front of you. Having a deep inhale and exhale, not trying to manipulate the breath, but just following your own rhythm of pace that feels good in your body today. Just noticing how the belly falls on the inhale and then exhale, kind of contracts back together. Inhaling to fill the belly and then exhaling to really empty. And then on the next inhale, you'll just walk the hands over to the right side of the mat. They might come off the mat, and we're just lengthening the left side of the body here. Taking a couple deep breaths, feeling into the length on the left side, opening up the ribs and the side body from the left fingertip all the way down to the left hip. Exhaling here and then inhaling back through to center, taking a deep exhale. And then inhaling, bringing the hands over to the left side of the mat. They'll probably come off the mat. Just pressing really evenly with both hands, maybe a little deeper in the right hand to create that long line, that stretch from the left pinky to the left hip. And by left, I mean right. From the right pinky to the right hip as you stretch over to the left side. Really feeling that gentle opening in the right side of the body. Taking a deep inhale and then a deep exhale here. And then inhaling back through to the center position, finding a neutral spine and taking a deep breath. And then on your next inhale, we'll come up through to a tabletop position. Bring the wrists underneath the shoulders and the knees as wide as the hips underneath the hip bones. And you can tuck the toes here if it feels better for the knees, or leave them untucked. Super up to you. And then just finding a cat and cow here. Inhaling to drop the belly, lift the chin, lift the tailbone as you look up. Then exhale, pushing the ground away, bringing the back of the body to the ceiling, tucking the chin, tucking the tailbone. Finding your inhale as you open and expand the front of the body. And then exhale as you really tighten the front body and open the back side of you. Finding your inhale into cow and your exhale into cat, doming the back. Doing 2 more of those at your own pace. Maybe you'd like to introduce a little more spinal movement, kind of like you're inside of a barrel or like a washing machine. Kind of rotating the spine in both directions as you inhale and exhale. Almost like you could bring the right hip to the right ear. And then bring the left hip to the left ear. And then finding neutral when you finish with that round. Spine is long. And then inhaling, sweeping the right hand up and overhead, laterally twisting in a twisting in the thoracic spine, inhaling, and then exhaling, bringing the hands underneath, threading the needle through. So you come down to rest on the right shoulder and right ear, and maybe that left hand comes up and overhead for support, and maybe you'd like to extend the left leg long, just feeling in wherever you are, finding the length. Maybe you notice it's a little bit wobbly, and that's okay. Inhaling, and exhaling, bring the knee down if you lifted it, bring the left hand in front of the face, and inhaling the right hand up and overhead once again, really twisting from the thoracic spine before you let that hand come down. And just finding that neutral tabletop once again, before inhaling the left hand up and overhead, and exhaling, threading the needle underneath and through, coming to rest on the left shoulder and left side of your face. Maybe the right hand comes above the skull just a little bit for support, and maybe you lengthen that right leg behind you. Lifting it if that feels good and if that's in your practice, really feeling that extension through the right hip. Threading the needle, feeling into the shoulder, feeling the core muscles, what it takes to kind of keep that stability. Inhaling and then exhaling, bring the right knee down. Bring the right hand in front of the face, pushing into it. Inhaling that left arm up and overhead, twisting and then unwinding. Bring the left hand back down. And then making sure the knees are underneath the hips, walking the arms forward, coming into your puppy pose. Bring the chest down and the skull down. And maybe you can rest the chin on the mat here. Keeping toes untucked or tucked, whatever feels best. Feeling the opening in the shoulders as you inhale and exhale. And inhaling, gently pushing with the forearms, and then walking the hands back to that tabletop position. From here, bringing the hands a little bit further than where they were before, further away from the body. Tucking the toes and then lifting the knees off the mat just to hover for a moment of breath. Inhaling and then exhaling, hiking the hips up and back. We're coming into our first downward dog pose. Let the heels be heavy. And like you're pushing a door away, push with the bases of the fingertips into the ground, making sure not to strain the wrists. Maybe pedaling out the legs here if this is your first downward dog of the day. And finding stillness wherever you are. Maybe heels are heavy, hips are high. If the knees need to bend a little to bring the hips a little higher, do that. Inhaling and exhaling, bending the knees, looking between the hands, and just walking to the front of the mat. Hanging over the front legs into Uttanasana pose, maybe grabbing opposite elbows and letting the body hang. Having a generous bend in the knees if they're not like that already. Swaying from right to left. Letting the upper body really release. And letting the arms go, allowing them to come to your shins, pushing the calves away, half lifting with a flat spine. Exhaling back over the body. And then inhaling, curling and rounding all the way back up. Reaching the arms up and overhead, exhaling them back down at your sides, finding Tadasana or mountain pose. Bring the feet as wide as the hips or maybe a little wider, kind of depending on what's comfortable in your body. Tucking the pelvis, tucking the tailbone under, lengthening the spine. Bring the shoulders down away from the ears, palms facing forward, hands at your sides and eyes on the horizon. This is your standing mountain pose. Really lifting the toes and rooting them back into the ground. Feeling that firmness and that stability. And then inhaling, sweeping the arms up and overhead as you look up, making sure not to compromise the ribs jutting out. Inhaling as you look up, and then exhaling at the hips, bending and folding over with that flat spine. And then inhaling, pushing the calves away, half lifting, looking up. Exhaling, keeping the flat spine, taking the legs back into a high plank pose. We'll wait here for just a couple breaths, making sure to push the ground away, almost like you're trying to puff up between the shoulder blades. If your hips are high, making sure to sink them a little lower, not too low, but just even, so your body's on a high diagonal. And then lowering the knees down and tucking the toes and lowering the chest all the way down to the mat. Pushing with the backs of the feet into the mat, pushing the ground away, inhaling for baby Bhujangasana Cobra. And then exhaling, pushing back into child's pose once again. I'm staying here for just one breath, finding the inhale and finding the exhale. And then inhale, pushing the ground away, coming through table, lifting the knees and hiking the hips. Going into your downward dog pose once again. Taking another deep breath into your downward dog pose. And then inhaling, left leg up behind you. And stacking the hips, bending the knee and looking but underneath the right armpit. Looking at the left foot. Feeling that opening in the hip. Then inhale, straightening the left leg, squaring off the hips, bending the left knee, and bringing the left knee up into the chest in a plank pose. Pausing here. And then bringing the foot between the hands. Inhaling for a high lunge pose. Maybe arching the spine a little as you look up. And then exhaling, bring the right hand down to the mat and twisting over to the left. Opening the left hand up and overhead in the side twist. Maybe you'd like to stay here or bring the toes over to the left side of the mat. Stacking the left leg on top of the right, coming into side plank. Inhaling. Exhaling here. Inhaling and then exhaling, bring the left hand down and lowering through all the way to the front of the mat, front of your body on the mat. Inhaling, pushing the ground away, Bhujangasana. Exhaling, curling and rounding, going back into the child's pose, rolling the wrists and resting your forehead. We're going to take a couple breaths here. Finding your exhale. And then inhale, pushing through table, tucking the toes and lifting the hips into your downward dog again. And then inhaling the right leg up and overhead and stacking the hips, bending the right knee and looking underneath the left armpit for the right foot. Taking a moment of pause and stillness, perhaps, maybe rotating the ankle. And then inhaling, straightening the right leg, squaring off the hips, bring the right leg to chest, up into that plank pose, pushing the ground away. Bringing the knee to the chest. And stepping the right foot between the hands. And inhaling into that high lunge pose. Maybe making it a crescent as you reach the arms back. Opening up the left hip. And exhale, bring the left hand down and the right hand up into a side twist. Inhaling here, maybe staying here, or bring the toes towards the right side of the mat. And stacking the right leg on top of the left. Maybe in tree, maybe extended, maybe just stacked. Taking 3 deep breaths, lifting the right hip, lifting the hips up towards the ceiling. Inhaling.
Exhaling, pushing the ground away. Inhaling and exhaling, bring the right hand down and lowering through to the mat. Untucking the toes, pushing the ground away for a baby cobra, looking up. Exhaling, curling and rounding back into a child's pose. Rolling out the wrists. Maybe giving them a massage. And inhaling, coming up through table, tucking the toes, going into downward facing dog pose. Inhaling the left leg up and back. Bring the left leg through, stamping between the hands. Bring the right ankle down. Inhaling, opening up into warrior two pose. Then bring the right heel in, coming into goddess. Bending at the shoulders and the elbows. Hands facing towards the ceiling. Squatting a little deeper. Tucking the tailbone. Making sure the spine is really long. Hanging out here for a couple breaths. Maybe you feel a little shaky. Really pushing with the feet together, like that isometric contraction. Like you could pull the mat together with your feet. Inhaling, and then exhale, straightening the legs, reaching the hands. Inhaling, and exhaling, bring the toes to face the long side of your mat, wide-legged. And then reaching the hands back behind you, clasping the fingers, the hands together. Inhaling, pressing the hands down, the chest up as you arch, and then exhaling, forward folding, bring the hands up and overhead for a wide-legged forward fold with the hands clasped. Maybe move the hands, moving them over to the right and over to the left. Feel like you're flossing your shoulders. Making sure to add a gentle bend in the knees to not lock out those joints. And gently exhale, the hands unclasp. Come underneath the shoulders and inhale for a flat spine. Half lift into a turbo table. And exhale, walking the hands forward into a downward dog, wide-legged. Letting the head release and the back be super long. Hips high. Taking 3 breaths here. Inhale, walking the hands back to the center, bending in the right knee and bringing the hands together into the chest in prayer pose, lifting the left toes up, finding Skandasana on the right side. And then keeping the hips low, inhaling, going to the left, right toes face up towards the ceiling. And matching that with your breath, inhaling to the right, and then exhaling to the left. It's really flossing the knees and the hips. Doing 2 more sets. And then next time you go to the right, framing the right foot and bringing the right foot up and back into a 3-legged downward facing dog pose. Inhaling and exhaling that right leg back down. And inhaling, coming through to the plank pose. And bending the knees, hiking the hips towards the ankles, and lifting back into a downward dog pose. Inhaling to the plank, and exhaling, bending the knees, hips to ankles, and lifting the hips into downward dog. Doing this little flow just a couple more times. Maybe you feel like a little wave. A little strong little wave. Maybe you're on the tippy toes like me. Pushing the ground away, inhaling 1 more time. Through the plank. And then curling up and back into that downward dog. We'll all meet in downward dog pose. And bending the knees, looking between the hands, and bringing both feet to the outside of both hands. You're gonna really propel and jump there. Inhaling into your Malasana at the top of the mat. And this is where maybe you'd like a little block to sit upon. Or maybe you need a blanket for underneath the ankles if they're quite high, just listening to the body and what it needs. Pushing the knees away with the elbows. Pushing the hands together, inhaling with that flat length of the spine. And exhaling, bring the hands behind you and coming down to a seat and bring the legs wide and long. Maybe it would feel better to have blocks under the knees for support. Or maybe you just keep those knees bent. For some of us, it might mean that we straighten the legs with the toes facing towards the ceiling at all times. Inhaling with a flat spine. Then exhale, really pouring over from the pelvis, toes pointed towards the ceiling. We're coming into a forward fold. Taking 3 deep breaths here, knowing that you can always come out if it feels too much. Inhaling and exhaling. And then inhaling, walking the hands back up to center. And bring the legs in front of you. Then bending in the right knee and bring the right foot to the outside of the left knee. Bring the right foot to the outside of the left knee. And inhaling, sweeping the hands up and overhead. Bring the right hand back behind you. Maybe it meets a block. Left arm over as you engage in this twist. Making sure not to wrench into the twist too quickly, but first working on finding the twist. So inhaling for length, and then exhaling, you curl and turn over to the right. Inhaling for length. And exhale, emptying the lungs, twisting a little deeper. Keeping with that pattern so you can look over the right shoulder. And once you've found that, holding over there, looking over the right shoulder for 2 breaths. And exhale, just looking forward with the gaze. Next exhale, unwinding the body. Bring the right leg long, bending the left knee, and bringing the left foot to the outside of the right knee. Inhaling, the arms up, left hand back behind you, right arm over the left knee. And then inhaling to find length, and exhale, twisting over to the left. Inhale, finding length, and then exhale, twisting. Until you're looking over the left shoulder. And taking a couple breaths over there. And inhaling with the gaze, looking forward, and exhale, unwinding the body. And coming down to your back. Just rolling all the way down, feeling each vertebrae if you can. And then resting on the back, knees bent, feet planted, hips width distance. And then bringing the right ankle on top of the left knee into a figure 4 position, pulling out that right knee away from you. And then inhaling, bring the left knee to chest, still keeping that right knee away from the body. Maybe you go behind the left calf, left thigh, or in front of the shin. And rock it from left to right along the spine. Making sure the head is looking towards the ceiling, keeping that long line, feeling like the crown of the head is pulling towards the back wall. Hanging out in this almost like pigeon pose. but you're pulling the leg towards you instead of the ground taking over with gravity. Inhaling and then exhaling, letting the leg go long. Letting both legs rest for just a moment, maybe noticing the difference. Both legs long down the mat. And when you're ready, bending the knees once again. Bringing the left ankle on top of the right knee and opening up, pushing that left knee away from the body. As you inhale, bring that right knee close to chest, maybe grabbing behind the right thigh or in front of the right shin. Flexing the left foot and maybe the right foot also. Gaze towards the ceiling. Rocking from left to right, keeping that left knee away from your face. Opening up into the left hip in our version of pigeon pose. And finding stillness when you're ready. And letting the right leg go and letting the left leg go long. And the right leg go long. Having the arms at your sides. And if you'd like to take a back bend or anything else in this time, please do. Or else we can just meet in Shavasana. Maybe pausing this video if you'd like to remain in Shavasana a little longer. Taking a few deep breaths to really settle the body. Pausing here if you'd like to take your own length of Shavasana. And if you only have this amount of time, just coming up through to a seat, hands together, bowing the head, maybe closing the eyes, just taking a last breath for yourself before you move into the rest of your day. Taking a deep inhale and exhale. Feeling the peace that perhaps you've cultivated in your practice today, and wishing that peace for others, those in the world that might be suffering, those near and close to you in your community, and those far away in other countries. Wishing them well, wishing them peace and love. And then hands kind of over your heart if you'd like, wishing yourself that peace as well. Wishing yourself love. And lowering the hands and blinking the eyes open. Thank you guys for practicing with me today. I hope it was fun and nourishing. And I hope it maybe built some heat and just felt all good and gooey inside. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day. Bye-bye.